So, how's everyone doing today? Having a good time so far? Yeah, that's good. So before we begin, I would just like to thank the Geneva Spire for having us all here and everyone at N.E.Geek for putting on this expo every year so far. So this is for foam armor building for cosplay. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Adam Hazy. I'm host of UnitedPropBuilders on YouTube. I've been a cosplayer and a maker for over 6 years, and I'm a host of a replica prop and costume podcast, The Prop Shop, on iTunes and Stitcher. You may recognize me from previous years if you've attended as either the Halo 3 ODST or the Star Wars The Clone Wars Commander Rex. So you're probably wondering, if you're going to build some sort of armor, why do it out of foam instead of like fiberglass or resin or something else that'll hold up for a long time, be durable? Well, that's because foam is cheaper. The cost between the two is it'll cost you about $50 for just the 3 startup materials you need to make it out of fiberglass versus about $7 to $20 for a pack of foam. Along with that, foam is more flexible than fiberglass or plastic resins. It'll allow you to move and bend a bit more than anything else, and if you drop it on the ground, it's not going to shatter and ruin all your hard work. And it's non-toxic. Foam, all you do is we'll get into it more, but you cut it with an X-Acto knife. You're not mixing chemicals together and needing a respirator, having to do it outdoors and getting cancer. And it's lightweight. So a piece of fiberglass armor can weigh anywhere between 1 and 5 pounds, where a thing of foam is like your whole costume might be a pound or 2 at most. So, just to get into some of the differences, if you were to do it the traditional way with fiberglass or resin, this is a program called Pepakura. I don't know how many of you know about it, but it takes 3D models and turns it into 2D cutouts for you to assemble. Now, this is an example of the Iron Man Mark 7, and as you can see, it has a ton of pieces here to work with and a ton of little details you need to add in. But when you convert those into foam files, it gets rid of a lot of the mess, a lot of the unneat, because foam has thickness, it has dimension. So it allows you to eliminate a lot of these extra pieces down here which just connect things, because with the foam, you can cut it to make that dimension yourself. Also, you don't need as many things because these are templates, not actual pieces for the model. What you can do is say there are 2 of that piece. Okay, you trace it once, you flip it over to get a mirror, you trace it again. So you're having less waste and less cardstock to go through. So what can you make with foam? These are a few of my buddies, Jim McCrae, Brad Thompson, and Jeremy Slum. They all made Halo armor from this foam. You have Master Chief and then 2 of the Halo 4 Spartans from the multiplayer. You can also get ODSTs from Halo 3, Halo 4, Halo 2, along with the Titanfall players. That's my buddy Andrew Cook from New Zealand. Also, you don't have to make armor out of it. You can make astromech droids or something else from Star Wars, Team Fortress 2 weapons, or any other type of con-friendly weapon instead of making it out of metal, which shouldn't be allowed because it's extremely dangerous, or Nerf guns. If you want something that looks as close as you can to the actual game model, you can make it out of foam because you can cut it, craft it in any type of way you want. So what do you need to get started? It's very simple and very cheap. You can either get the puzzle piece EVA floor mats, which you typically see in gyms or garages or anything else, or the rolls, which you usually see in truck beds or just little stand areas for a small section of garage. Again, you can find these from anywhere between $7 and $20 for a pack. You usually get 4 to 6 for the puzzle pieces and a good chunk of feetage in the rolls. Now, like we were talking about earlier, you need to cut it somehow. And the cheapest and most economical way to do it is with an X-Acto knife or a box cutter, because you go to the store, you buy them for $1, cut them up, doll it, break the blade, replace it, get the next one. But if you want to get the most out of your cuts and have the least amount of seam lines seen, I'd recommend some sort of bandsaw or other type of saw to get those perfect cuts out of there, because even then you can angle the platform and get 45 degrees to get all your angles covered as well. Also, highly recommended is some sort of rotary tool. A lot of people know the brand Dremel or Black & Decker. Those are usually the most popular ones to get, because with that you can sand the corners quicker instead of having to cut it and have it be rough. So you can have those nice smooth transitions throughout the pieces. Also, it's good for cutting those lines like in that Iron Man helmet we've seen earlier to get that detail line going up and around the ear. Instead of making 2 separate pieces, just make it one large piece and then cut an indent into it, but don't cut all the way through. Now, if you want to put the foam together so you can actually have something solid and wearable, you're going to need either hot glue or contact cement. Both of these everything we've talked about so far can be found at hardware stores and some craft stores. But with the hot glue, you need to be careful because you have the strings that come out and sticks and mess. And also, if you're going to a hotter environment like the South or the West or the Midwest, where the temperatures get in the 80s, 90s, 100s, you need to get high temperature hot glue or else it'll melt and your costume will fall apart because low temperature is not going to last in that kind of weather. And with the contact cement, it's more expensive than the hot glue, so not a lot of people use it unless they're high-end builders. But it's a better contact, a better stick, and it helps out with reducing the seams or the hot glue squeezing through the other end. Now, before you can paint anything that you've made, you need to seal it. Because it's an open pore foam, if you paint it right away, the paint will just seep right in, stay wet and tacky, and it'll just make a mess. So the most popular thing to use is Plasti-Dip. So what Plasti-Dip does is it's a rubberized coating that goes on the top of the piece you're working on to allow you to then prime and paint it. But the thing is, you're going to want to use the spray can, not the actual dip itself. Because with the spray can, you can get nice, even coats of everything. With the dip, you either need to pour it on or get a paintbrush and brush it on, and then you have brush strokes and clumpage. It's just a mess. So then you can move on to paint. The most basic paints a lot of people use are the spray cans or rattle cans, however you wish to refer to them. Because you can get nice, clean finishes like right away, but the thing is if you're not careful with them, they can bubble and drip and ruin it. So a lot of people will usually do a base of the rattle can for like, say you're doing an armor set, doing a gray or silver to get that metal look, and then after that going over it with a red or a black or a brown, whatever the armor is you're going for, because that way, say the paint starts wearing or chipping off, you'll have that metallic undercoat to make it look more like battle damage for actual metallic pieces. And then after that, a lot of people like to go through with acrylics and black wash their armor. So parts that you have risen or indented, put a little black in there, grab a damp brush or towel, smooth it out so you have just the right amount of grunge look in the pieces where dust and dirt would normally collect. Now, to get it actually on your body and assembled, there's a lot of different methods you can go through. Some of the most popular ones for the bigger armor pieces are the nylon webbing and the buckles. Because that way, if you have backpacks or coats, you know you've seen the nylon webbing before, you adjust the straps and all that. Because it's the most durable, and with the buckles, you can just snap, take it off, okay, you're done. Two other things a lot of people like to use is Velcro and snaps. Velcro is good if you're just connecting a couple pieces together, but it's not so great if you have the sticky back Velcro and say you put the Velcro on the foam on both sides and then you stick it together, because the bond between the two pieces of Velcro will rip the glue right off and then you'll have a mess to deal with later. One of the newest things a lot of people have started doing is, if you know about the Halo Spartans or the Star Wars Troopers, they have that undersuit, that cloth undersuit they wear. So with that, if you make the pieces out of foam instead of like fiberglass because of the weight, you can actually put snaps onto the cloth fabric itself and then glue the other side of the snaps onto the piece. So that way you just click, click, snap the piece on. You won't have the webbing shown, you won't have straps going around your arms if it's a gauntlet or just a half armor piece. So snaps are kind of the newest thing that a lot of people have been working with who do lightweight armor builds with the cloth undersuits. So that's about all there was for the quick and dirty presentation, just to get you guys introduced to what's going on. So does anybody have any questions about what to do or processes or ideas that they have come across? Yes?
That program that you use, can you take like an AutoCAD file or a SolidWorks file and translate it over into the program that you're using for your phone cutouts?
Most of the time you can. In AutoCAD in general, unless you made it 3D, because I know there's a lot of people use the 2D ones for architecture and designing, you should be able to. A lot of the times though, it's like an SKE or an OBJ, more like actual designs from like Maya or Google SketchUp or something like that. And you can literally get anything you need. The program's free to download if you just type in Pepakura on Google or Tamasoft, the company's name, and then you can just start downloading stuff right from their site, or just Google Pepakura file Iron Man, and then you'll get like all the different movie suits. Same with any other type of brand. Any others? Well, if not, I wish everybody, oh yes?
Really quick, yeah, for a substitute for plastic dip, wood glue works pretty well.
Yes, wood glue does. It needs to be watered down just a little bit, and then you can brush it on. The only thing with that is, it is cheaper, but it's more time consuming because you got to get multiple layers of that to make sure that it's covered and thick enough to allow the paint to not eat away or get into the pores.
Right.
Anything else? Yes.
Have you ever tried a hot knife or a wire to cut the foam with?
Hot wires aren't a terrible idea, but neither are hot knives. You just need to be careful with them, because if you have something that gets that hot, or say like a wood engraving tool also with like the attachment to cut, you need to be careful with those because they sometimes like to melt the foam it's cutting and creates the fumes, which the fumes from the melted foam are toxic, but still not as bad as the fiberglass. So if you were to use those, I would recommend a highly ventilated area just to get the airflow going, maybe a fan to push the smoke away from you. Yes?
Do you have any future plans for a future build that you want to do?
Yes, actually. One of the ones I'm doing is, you've seen the astromech droid up on the presentation earlier from Star Wars Rebels that my buddy Jake did. So I plan on doing an R2 astromech of myself for Star Wars, so I can have just a nice little display piece to show off. Yes?
I've seen some of these people run around these Iron Man suits. They actually have the motors and stuff hooked up inside the suit. How would one go about hooking up with one of those motors? Like the faceplate to come up?
Okay. What you would need for that is an Arduino or some other codable programming piece, which you can get at Radio Shack or Best Buy or eBay. And then after that, you would connect a servo to it, which is just like a mini motor, and then hook it to a power source. And then a lot of times there will just be like a switch or a button hidden somewhere on the costume to make a normal gesture look like it does it. So what it'll do is when the button's pushed, it'll send the signal to the Arduino signaling, okay, turn on. And then what the servo will do is twist its arm up, which is attached to the faceplate, to lift that up. There's a lot more that goes into it, like detail-wise, like the programming and coding and all that, which is you can find online anywhere. I don't know the specifics for that. I haven't delved into that just because of the cost involved, usually between $50 and $100 for the board. And then depending on whether you want a plastic gear or metal gear servo is going to depend between 20 and 50 bucks for that as well. If you were to start doing that, I would recommend the metal gear ones, only because with the plastic gear, after so many uses, you're going to strip the gears out of it, and then it'll become useless, and you'll have to buy a new one anyways. But first,
how would you go about attaching it to underneath of like plastic or
what you can do is on the arm itself from the servo. So like here's your servo box, and it usually has an arm that comes out. A lot of people will just kind of either build hinges and attach it to that eventually, or its own little like apparatus that'll kind of stick out, attach to the faceplate like right in front of you, and then it'll go up and down from there. So a lot of people like to use metal for that, just only because when it comes to the helmets, a lot of people like to go out and buy their helmets or make those just to make them look smoother. It's a hard time to get a smooth looking helmet. So a lot of the time people will make the entire foam suit and then go out and buy a helmet. And you can get resin kits between 100 and 250 bucks depending on the helmet, the amount of detail, and who did it. Yes? Yes and no. If you get smooth cast from Smooth On, which is a plastic resin, not a fiberglass resin, after you coat it in, for that one I'd recommend the wood glue over the plasti dip. for the interaction. You can coat it in a plastic shell, for lack of a better term, but when you do that, you lose the flexibility that the foam offers. So you can, if you want to get the smooth design and you know it's not going to be a flexible piece per se, but if it's like your chest or legs area and you need to move, I wouldn't recommend it just because you're not going to be able to get that movement that you would normally have. Generally, yes. A lot of people have been kind of experimenting with stuff like that, but it's best before going in and just trying it your own. Kind of do some research and figure out the best way that people have used it and the success rate. Because Mod Podge isn't one of the ones I personally heard about a lot of. It's usually Elmer's glue, wood glue, or the Plasti Dip. Did you have a question? For that, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can do it in pieces if you want a specific look like that. A lot of other people will get a heat gun, which is basically just a buffed up hair dryer, and then you can heat the surface of it. Wear gloves, of course, because you don't want to burn yourself. Yeah, so you would just heat it up, bend it, hold it in place for a long time, let it go. If you see it start to form, hit it again. It's a long process, but it's worth doing over making multiple pieces. Yes?
Would you suggest doing the heat gun on the inside of the material or on the exterior?
On the smooth side. It depends, because it depends how you define the exterior or interior, because some people, especially for the Mass Effect armors, they like to get the very thin little grid line pattern ones to get the texture. So for them, that's the outside. But if you're going for the smooth side to paint it up and put your own designs on there, whatever the outside piece is what you want to hit mostly, but I'd recommend the smooth side because it's the easiest part to work with because that's where the open pores are. Because with the texture, it's still open, but not as much. It's more difficult to work with on that side. Any other questions? Okay. Well, everybody have a great day at the expo then. I'll see you on the show floor.